you like to volunteer with any form of organization or any type of organization, it is very important, says Imam Al-Zarnuji, as how a person, who wants to work in a workplace or having a job, you need to have prior education, you need to have prior training. And likewise, in the becoming as simple as volunteerism, of which Imam Zarnuji said, if you have been entrusted by a person or by a person of importance, or someone who is a benefactor, and said, you go to so and so and deliver this food or any kind of assistance, it is wajib that you have the basis of knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Knowledge of that person, the beneficiary that you're helping. Now, even to the extent, sometimes we love to volunteer. We need to know what are we volunteering for. We need to know who are we helping. We need to know who's the benefactor and who's the beneficiary. We need to know the source of income of the benefactor, not to dive deep into the matters of personal interest, but rather to just know what is this for and what is being given, who's going to receive. If you are giving food, you need to understand who is receiving it. You don't just merely give food just so because you have money, just so because you like to help out, but without having a proper understanding established beforehand who you are extending your hands in trying to help for or to. So with regards to that, even as simple as volunteering for events, volunteering for a charitable cause, you need to have knowledge what is more when it comes to matters of the deen. And that is why Imam Al-Ghazali said it is important who you listen to or who you listen from and who you undertake in terms of the underwriting of the deen, where you are learning the sources of your deen from. And that is why Imam Al-Ghazali reminded us that without us realizing, sometimes within the corridors of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ingrained within it are not just the people of Allah, but shaitan seeping through any form of space available to whisper deception. Even though if it means you are coming to a masjid, even though if it means you are embarking on doing something good, sometimes you don't realize that just so perhaps you have been misguided by whispers of deception of shaitan. Like for example, when you start to leverage on, I'm a person of the mosque, I'm a person of this masjid, I keda wa keda wa keda wa keda, and I think I should receive some kind, of honor or some kind of remuneration or some kind of return in something that I do. So sometimes without us realizing, things that we do that is seen on the public's eye and sphere as something that is charitable, something that is, mashallah, something that is good, something that is amazing, sometimes can be tainted with things that are unseen. Now, these are the deception of shaitan. And that is very important. This says Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahumullah ta'ala qaddasallahu bih, why we are learning and why we are studying. And later on, when Imam Al-Ghazali talks about the three classes of people or the three types of people, we will further understand what is meant by Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah. Then beware, O destitute one, of following shaitan's disingenuous advice and being roped in his deceit. And Imam Al-Ghazali, before he enclassed the three types of people, Imam Al-Ghazali once again reminded us, فَإِيَّاكَ يَا مِسْكِينُ. And Imam Al-Ghazali called us, فَإِيَّاكَ يَا مِسْكِينُ, O destitute one, أَن تُذْعِنَ لِتَدْوِيرِهِ وَتَدَلَّ بِحَبْلِ غُرُورِهِ. To be mindful of the rope of shaitan and not to be roped into any one of his misguidance. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْجَاهِلِ, says Imam Al-Ghazali, حَيْثُ لَمْ يَتَعَلَّمْ مَرَّةَ وَاحِدَةً وَوَيْلٌ لِلْعَالِمِ حَيْثُ لَمْ يَعْمَلْ بِعِلْمِهِ أَلْفَ مَرَّةً وَاعْلَمْ رَحِيمَكَ اللَّهُ أَنَّ النَّاسَ فِي طَلَبِ الْعِلْمِ ثَلَاثَةِ أَهْوَالٍ. And Imam Al-Ghazali said this, woe be to the ignorant one. Woe be to the ignorant one. فَوَيْلُ لِلْمُجَاهِلِ. Be mindful of those, who are known as the jahil, ignorant one. Even though it comes to you a message of reminder, but then he still digress and digress away. Because he did not seek knowledge. And woe 1,000 times to the knowledgeable one, who did not act upon his knowledge. So there are two types of people over here. Before Imam Ghazali talks about the three classes of people, Imam Al-Ghazali said, woe be to those who do not seek knowledge, but rather speak of his own free will. A person who do not understand the matters of the heart of the deen, but decides to speak on it. Yesterday's khutbah reminded us on the importance of choosing the right words, to be mindful and be responsible of the things that we say, of the things that we do, of the things that we act on, and not just merely saying things for the sake of saying things, to go down to the basis of understanding and to embrace the truth in whatever that is being said, and also understand that despite the truth, one must also uphold the importance of breaking the knowledge or sending off the knowledge and the matters of how to engage with people. Some people are blatant. Yes, the truth is in their hands. They understand what is right, they understand what is wrong, and they act upon the calling of Nahi Munkar. But they don't understand about Amar Ma'ruf. Remember, in our previous session, one of the things that I shared with you with regards to the advice of my Sheikh is that we used to ask, Ya Sheikh, kida wa kida, give us some kind of knowledge, tell us, give us some tips of what needs to be done or what to do. Or for example, this is Muharram, or this is going to be the 10 nights of Ramadan. Tell us, Ya Sheikh, or Ya Maulana, or Ya Habib, or Ya Ustaz, or Ustaza, things that needs to be done. And this is normal. This is normal. Even I sometimes do that. Because we just love to hear inspirational ilham from our mashayikh. And my teacher once said this, that that verily the answers are always the same. To do good, keda wa keda, to do sadaqah, your salah, to act in mercy with your parents, keda, to uphold the deen. It's always the same answers, he said. But this is one thing that sometimes we, as the servants of Allah, as the followers of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we fail to act upon, and that is to refrain ourselves from falling into sin, to not do sins. And that is the first goodness that you can do in life, to stop doing wrong things. To stop doing things, we will just incur the wrath of Allah. Yes, we are trying our very best, our level best, to try to get the rahmah of Allah, the mercy of Allah. And yes, the mercy of Allah is always there. The mercy of Allah, the love of Allah is always there. But sometimes, without us realizing, we incur the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just so perhaps we are forgetful as a human being. La yusammal insan illa bin nisyan. You are not called a human being lest you forget. And sometimes, due to our very humanistic nature, we forget things. It's not wrong to forget, but it's wrong to incur the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by just blatantly forgetting things. In Islam, one of the most important things in fiqh that lays as a baseline when a person performs an ibadah, when a person performs, for example, Umrah or Hajj, especially Umrah and Hajj, is this term called ikhtiyat. You know what's ikhtiyat? And that is to hold yourself back, to discipline yourself. And that's the whole idea of ibadah, to discipline yourself. We need discipline in life. And that's why Islam is not just merely a religion. Islam is a way of life. The things that we do as a form of ibadah is a form of discipline, to put us in order, to put us on a path as a disciple of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to reorganize and restructure the focus of our life, and to align our life in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla. One that we always ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our salah, ihdinas sirat al-mustaqim. Ya Allah, guide us in the straight path. And that's the whole idea of the deen, discipline. You can talk about 1,000 ibadah. You can talk about, you can follow through lectures with, 7 tips to improve your life, 7 things to do in the month of Ramadan. But if you don't stop doing the one thing that will tarnish whatever amounts of ibadah that's right in front of you, within your capacity to be done, within your ability to carry out, and that is in performing sin and falling into the state of sin. And sins are widespread, a lot. And I don't have to, expound them one by one or expand them, in greater detail, because we know what sins are. And each and every single one of us, with our own dark battles that we have within ourselves, we understand the things that we need to do. A person to another person have different inclinations and different wants and needs. But we all have things that's kept in the dark closets of our life. It is not, for us to just keep it hidden, but sometimes we need to do some kind of reflection on what have been done. And then make an oath to yourself and Allah, and that is known as Tawbatan Nasuha. One, I think, that most of you, or all of you, performed this morning, and that is Salat Tawbah. It is for you to come to a realization and understanding that Allah, with His utmost mercy and love, has kept hidden the darkest sins in our lives. Now just imagine this. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla were to exchange every dark secrets and sins and wrong deeds that we perhaps might have done before, and Allah make it or turn it into a bad, foul smelling smell, or fragrant, pungent smell, a putrid smell, every single one of our mistakes, do you think we will have friends? Do you think our family will still want to be with us? One of the tests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to one of His beloved prophet was Nabi Ayub, who was tested with an illness. And he was a prophet, and he has not done anything wrong. But Allah tested him with one of the disease of dermatology. You know what's that? Which is on the skin. At certain points of the day, it will reek of some kind of smell. And this was not, a slay on Nabi Ayub by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whatsoever. It's just a test that Allah grants in its extremities towards the people around Nabi Ayub alayhi salatu wasalam, which in turn, his family left him, his children left him, his community left him, out of shame, because of their leader in a state that is seemed to be one, perhaps, in their thoughts, in their own judgments, one that is not glorified by Allah, but rather it was the total opposite. Now, in life, sometimes, my friends, we have to do our own personal reflection. And it has been made known by ulama of the great past that a moment of reflection is better than 1,000 months of worship. Why? Because when you put into perspective that 1,000 months of worship, and you come to realization that whatever amounts of worship you present to Allah, none of it is enough to buy a spot in Jannah. None of it. None of us have, with whatever amount of ibadah, sadaqah, how much we benefit people, none of us will be able to buy a spot in Jannah. It is the most expensive property, but it can become affordable through the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla. Every single one of us will be granted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that solace, that tranquility in Jannah by His utmost mercy. And the most important part is to come to realization that whatever that we do is only by Allah and for Allah. And with that, it is important for us to seek knowledge. And that is the reason why Imam Al-Ghazali say, woe to those who do not seek knowledge, those who laze around, those who do not put in effort to learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes, yes, giving the benefit of the doubt, we have people who come forth, want to do this, want to do that, want to change, but it was such a slow change. It takes, one that could take perhaps a year or 2 or 3 years to master, takes 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. Now that is not change, that is procrastination. That is one thing that we need to also include inside our mindset, that change is not one that is linked to procrastination. You don't procrastinate change. You must embark on a journey of change, every single one of us, and we need to do it with full of seriousness. And we put in effort inside it. We put a lot of zeal. You need to be a person who put in a lot of zeal in whatever that you do, a lot of effort. And that is something which is important. And woe 1,000 times to those who have already received the knowledge by the people around them or by their scholars or teachers, but did not act upon the knowledge that has been given to them. Understand, says Imam Al-Ghazali, rahimahumullah. رجل طلب العلم ليدخره زادا إلى المعاد. أن الناس في طلب العلم على 3 أهوال. The first one, رجل طلب العلم ليدخره زاد إلى المعاد ولم يقصد به إلا وجه الله تعالى والدار الآخرة فهذا من الفائزين. And Imam Al-Ghazali ended the first example of the three classes of people by saying, وَهُمْ مِنَ الْفَائِزِينَ فَهَذَا مِنَ الْفَائِزِينَ. What is faiz? Faiz, any one of you here by the name of faiz? It means a winner, a victor, a person who succeeds. So Imam Al-Ghazali said, رَجُلُ طَلَبَ الْإِلْمَ. First is a man who seeks knowledge to make it his provision on the way to the next life. A person who seeks knowledge to make it his provision on the way to the next life and intends by it nothing other than the countenance of Allah Most High and the home of the hereafter. And he is of the winners. Now, once before when we read this with our mashayikh, a friend or one of the Jama'ah said this, so does this mean that when we say seeking knowledge to make it a provision on the way to the next life, does it mean only studying matters of the deen? Yani we study fiqh, aqidah, akhlaq, we study, hadith, we master the sciences of Al-Quran Al-Karim. Is it just that, ya Shaykh? And the Shaykh said, well, if you just limit your understanding of matters or education with regards to the next life or the akhirah to only just the matters of the deen alone, then you are fooled. Why? Because in Islam, everything is knowledge. And that includes, and he was saying, ilm al-hisab, including mathematics. Why? Because in fiqh, there is mathematics. You're talking about the mawarith. You're talking about, what is it called? Zakat includes hisab, right? Ilmul mawarith, yani warisan. You have hibah wa nuzriya. All these are known as mathematical, explanations as well. You need mathematics to understand it. When you talk about medicine, which is part of Islam, we have imams like Imam Ibn Sina, who are masters of science, who are fathers of science. In fact, Imam Ibn Sina was the one who came up with the corpus of medicine, and he's known in the non-Muslim world as Avicenna. And what was his derivatives or derivations of science? Al-Quran wal Hadith. And not only that too, he combined them, he understood the context of his community, and people were getting ill, and he, through the thought process that has been, encasted within the Quran and the Hadith, he came up with solutions to illnesses that was pertinent during the time of Imam Ibn Sina. And he was also the father of surgery to open up people, of which during the time of Imam Ibn Sina, Islam already had their Bimaristan. What is Bimaristan? Bimaristan is a hospital. It's Persian, it's the name in Persia, right? It's called Bimaristan, or it's called Mashfa, or the house of cure. In Arabic it's Mashfa, in Persian it's called Bimaristan. And during the same time and era, there are people, our brethren from the Abrahamic faith, who think that people who had or have gone through surgery, after surgery, what is left behind? A scar. People who have scars are actually the offsprings or have been tainted by the devil. While at the same time, Muslims and Muslim doctors and scientists have been opening up people, removing things which are cancerous or, healing people from wars and battles and curing them. While at the same time, some other people, some other faith were thinking that, to cure such a thing, you need to go to witch doctor. You need to seek from the unseen. You need to do this, you need to do that. But nowadays, we have gone back to that actual state of, the opposite state of what Imam Ibn Sina has asked us to do, progress. We have regress. Nowadays, people who are ill, they immediately attribute something or immediately to the unseen things. This is that, this is this. Without even looking deep into the conditions of health with regards to sciences. Imam Ibn Sina dispelled lots of things with regards to physical health. And then there was another person who was also a Hafiz, who was also an important person in Hadith. It's Imam Al-Farabi, who was attributed with the father of mental health. And then there was another person, who right on that idea of Imam Ibn Sina, Imam Farabi, after surgery there's always scars, he came up with makeup. He came up with a solution to cover the scars. Why? Because whenever Muslims who have been going through surgery and they start to go out to do da'wah, or they go overseas to perform their sales or their marketing or their business in their trade, and then non-Muslims who see or who saw the scars on their body will say, no, I do not want to deal with you because you have been touched by the devil. So there was this particular Imam, I can't remember who, one of them is Imam Al-Falah as well, who devised a solution to that by coming up with makeup, of which the first reason of makeup was to make yourself up, to not deceive or to not be, be deceived by other people as a person of shaitan. So these are people of Islam. These are people who seek knowledge that is not just related to fiqh. They are not just related to hadith. They are not just related to akidah or akhlaq. But they expanded what they understood from hadith, from the Quran, from the traditions of the Prophet, and started to become mathematicians, and started to become, scientists, started to become doctors. And that is the understanding of what Imam Al-Ghazali said over here. You seek knowledge, even whether it is seen or deemed to be non-Islamic, but still important knowledge, for the provision of the akhirah. And then you will say, what has mathematics got to do with the akhirah? What has sciences got to do with the akhirah? Well, it means everything. Your education, by the mercy of Allah, will guide you to a specific kind of job or occupation that you will receive. And that is normal. In life, we will be certified with things that we can do. If you are studying engineering, most likely you will become an engineer. If you are studying medicine, most likely you will end up in a hospital or a clinic, all right, or doing something which is related to health, even if it means not being in a mashfa or a hospital. But isn't that something that brings back rizq and provision? And isn't provision akhirah when you work, when you study for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla? Is that not seeking from Allah rahmah? That is. And that is linked to your akhirah. So the first part, says Imam Al-Ghazali, amongst those who are known as Al-Faizeen, is a person who seeks knowledge to make it the provision on the way to the next life, by benefiting people around you. Be it Islamic studies, or you might say non-religious studies, or your secular studies, which is equally important. Second is a man who seeks knowledge to assist him in his present life and attain it by honor, good standing and wealth. He is aware of what he is doing and feels in his heart that his state is not good and his intention is not right. So second is a man who seeks knowledge. And what for he seeks knowledge is to assist him in his present life. Ustaz, I do this so that, I will be able to get this. I'm doing this so that, my direction of life will be such, keda, wa keda, wa keda. So that, I will receive honor. So that, Ustaz, I will be respected. So that I have a good status and standing. And so that I will be wealthy and rich. Is it wrong? It's not wrong. There are many ulamas, there are businessmen as well. One of them is Imam Ramli. Imam Al-Ramli rahimahumullah ta'ala was a Shafi'i Imam, was a very famous scholar, right? So, what was he known for? He was known for to be a wealthy sheikh, a sheikh who had business, and he was at the same time asking people to come to his classes, and he was paying people to come. If you come, I'll give you zakat. If you come, I'll give you some kind of donation. And people were coming. By the extreme, he was not buying people, but was just doing zakah. Because he don't need money. He doesn't need money. He's already, sustained by whatever he was doing in his business. And he was teaching at the same time. And was it wrong? It was not wrong. One of my hadith sheikh in Syria, when I was studying in Damascus, his name was Sheikh Sha'al. Sheikh Sha'al, he was a dentist. Right? So, if a student comes to him for dental matters, dentistry is not that cheap anyway, it's quite expensive. You need to do crowning, root canal, it's really expensive. So I remembered one time I had a root canal issue, and it was expensive. In Singapore, it might cost you thousands of dollars. Well, over there, perhaps during the time when I was studying, hundreds, but still for a student, it's quite expensive. So when we came, and he recognized me, I said, you are a student of, you were studying Sunan Abi Dawud with him. We're reading Sunan Abi Dawud with him. And he was asking, in yesterday's class, what was the hadith that I recited? He was asking me that, and well, we couldn't memorize the entire hadith, but we gave the gist of it, and he was smiling. I came with another one of my friend, another student, and he was smiling, and he said, MashaAllah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you great knowledge. And he said, I only want to hear that, because if you can't remember, if you don't remember, I will be in great trouble in front of Allah. Remember the hadith I was sharing with you just now? That the Prophet ﷺ said, and Imam Al-Ghazali quoted, one of the person who is known to be woed by Allah is a person who learns, but nothing is left behind. Now that is already woed by Allah. It means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry with him. But beyond that, a person who's teaching, and then the students do not register anything, hatta a single statement, hatta a single ayat, hatta a single understanding, there was no benefit whatsoever, alright? The teacher is in greater woe. And that's why there's such a thing called examination and test. Why? To assist students and monitor them, not just because of their grading and their understanding, but also to see how much of woe did the teacher will receive. Because the students were not attracted by whatever he was teaching, there was no benefit in his life or her life. So that's one of the ultimate reasons why we need to be tested. We need to be asked, we need to be quizzed. Of course, not to be given difficult, mountainous question, but rather questions to just level out things, to understand the basis, what has been taught and what has been delivered. Right? So that is really important. So, Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah said this. He is aware of what he is doing, and he feels in his heart, and he knows, I'm studying, but I'm doing this for the sake of the dunya. And he feels that his state is not good. I know it's not right. I know it's not good. And his intention, my intention is not good. And he is of those who put themselves in jeopardy. If he dies before making tawbah, it must be feared that he will come to a bad end, and his fate is under the divine will. Now this is really important. And going back to my sheikh who was the dentist, so when we answered and he was happy, he said, this is a greater gift to me than the fee that you're going to pay for my services. And just look out, and he told, this is my student, it's on me, it's free. Yeah. So since then on, any one of us who had any issues with our teeth, make sure that we memorize hadith before we go to see Sheikh Sha'al, our dentist. And that was amazing. Sheikh Sha'al was a hadith student, a sheikh, who memorized and a master of a few hadiths. And he was extremely interested, and his expertise is in the 4 other kitabs of hadith. We always like to leverage on the Sahih of Bukhari, which is quite straightforward, and the Sahih of Muslim, because everything that's been written by Imam Al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim are sound, very sound. But he takes on the challenge, of discovering hadith which matruk, hadith which is perhaps just Hasan, hadith perhaps which could be da'if, and he go out and he discovered why this hadith was not considered as hadith which is Hasan or hadith which is Sahih. Right? So he will find out about the Rijal hadith, he will talk about the people within, and he's a nice person. He was a great sheikh, a person that inspires upon his student to really work hard. Right? It's not easy to actually study or learn the Sunan of Abu Dawud or Nasa'i, because there are a lot of hadiths that needs to be put aside, needs to be expanded, need to be understood, the context of that hadith, right? The matan of the hadith, and so on and so forth. And so it's not wrong to be rich, but what is the reason why you want to be rich? And seeking knowledge, what's the ultimate reason why you want to do that? And Imam Ghazali continued, if he dies before making tawbah, it must be feared that he will come to a bad end, and his fate is under the divine will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if such a man is divinely guided to repentance before the arrival of his appointed time, and if he adds good work to his knowledge and redeem himself from his past shortcomings, he will become one of the winners. Imam Ibn Majah said this, for truly, one who repents of a sin is like one who has no sin. Once again, for truly, one who repents of a sin is like a person who has no sin. This was narrated by Imam Ibn Majah. It's really important for us to actually go back to the context of why, or the pretext of why we are learning. Why we want to study this? Why are we embarking on such a path? Why are we doing this and why are we doing that? It's not wrong to plan ahead in terms of your career life plan, what you need to do, what you have to do, because it's part of your jihad as a human being. But to solely attribute your life to studying something and for the seeking of, the worldly pleasures and rewards alone, without having any thoughts of service towards the path of Allah, and without having any thoughts or plans to go back to the service of the community, that is considered a wrong thing to do. It's not wrong to learn and study, but it's wrong to learn merely for the sake of the dunya. So if those of us who are going through this, make tawbah to Allah. It's not wrong to plan out a career. It's not wrong to align your studies with a career plan that you might have. But to put solely on that alone, for the benefits and rewards of this dunya, and forgetting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate bestower of life, well, that is something wrong. When I decided to leave a stable job last time, I was working in a mosque, I was and I was one of the head of the departments, and I decided to leave, to go and do perhaps my own things in life, to embark on a path of business. I was quite worried in the sense, I'm leaving something which is stable. The market is volatile. Now there's a VUCA world, if you understand VUCA, V-U-C-A, it's uncertain, it's volatile, it's really, it's quite difficult. And I left after, after COVID. But my wife and my mom tell me this, do not worry, Allah's there. And I ask some of my sheikh, some of you perhaps might have learned from him before, Muhammad, a good friend, Sheikh Ghanim, and I asked them, should I do this? Should I not do this? And he said, don't worry, you're going to do something which is, in the books of Imam Al-Ghazali, in chapter 2, with regards to seeking sustenance, Imam Al-Ghazali said, one of the best things that a human being needs to do in seeking sustenance is to follow on the path of the Prophet ﷺ, and that is to do trading. And so I tried to do that, and alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, up to this point of time, have been merciful and really bestowing. And with regards to that, it's always important that when you want to do something, you want to seek something, even to the extent of planning your career, Imam Al-Ghazali, not in this kitab, but in the kitab of Ihya Ulumuddin, the expansion of beginning of guidance, all right? He talked about the mindset of a person who's working. And that is, yes, you put in lots of effort at work. You put in lots of effort. You do not laze away, you do not laze around, you do not do things which will incur the wrath of your employers and whatever not. But at the same time, you work for the sake of Allah, you work for the sake of the people of Allah, and you're working for your family, for sustenance. And you do not forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise with studies. This kitab is regards to guidance. Guidance is meant by seeking knowledge. This is a book for students, for us to understand that whatever that we do to learn has to put in mind and place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thirdly, before we end this particular week session, third is a man who has fallen completely under the way of shaitan. This man uses his knowledge only to increase his wealth, only to boast his rank and status, and only to take pride in his large following and to become an influencer. With his knowledge, he explores every single avenue, hoping to gratify all the desires that he has for this world. In spite of all this, he still secretly believes he has a high place with Allah, because he adorns himself with the outer characteristics of the learned, following in their footsteps in dress and manner of speech, all the while rushing with frenzied desire towards the world, inwardly and outwardly. Now, one of the most important things is this. As a student of knowledge, or as a teacher, in whatever field or faculty that you might be in, that life or ilm is a lifelong journey. Knowledge is a lifelong journey. Even if it seems that you have been given a license to teach by your scholars, by your teachers, by whomsoever have educated you or taught you in any faculty or field of study, it is always important that you always go back to learning. When me and my friends and colleagues, we graduated from Damascus, and we asked our sheikh, what needs to be done after this? Do we go back and teach? What should we focus on? Because, as a student, we like to engage our teachers up to that point because we have that close connection. And my teacher will always come up with something which is beautiful. And when we ask him, so we go back and we teach now in Singapore? He said this: when I give you this ijazah, I did not ask you to teach, but rather I have shared with you the knowledge that have been given to me by my shaykh, by my teachers, by my father. And your job is to go back to your country and learn the context of your people. Learn what they need. Continue your education. Even if it means after a degree, take a diploma or a certificate, go and do it. And that's why when we came back, one of the things that I do was I studied psychology to understand the psyche of, the masyarakat, the community, and of which, it's very interesting. Because we studied in a foreign land, which has no resemblance or significance to Singapore. I studied in Syria. Syria, Damascus then was not like Singapore. It was totally different. The people was different. The food that we eat were different over there. The language was different. Lifestyle was different. Entertainment was different. Challenges were different. How shaitan operates in Damascus is different from how shaitan operates in Singapore. And as how shaitan operates in Malaysia is different from how shaitan operates over here as well. There are always loopholes that shaitan will come through and seep through to deceive other people. And that's why it's very important for us to come back from whatever field and faculty of our studies to understand what is really need by my people or by those around me. And that is what is meant by Imam Al-Ghazali over here. To not fall under the trap of shaitan by only studying and earning something only to use it for your own personal advantage. The best of charity, if all of us have remembered this hadith, is to learn the Quran and to teach it, not to keep it alone. Woe be to those who study and learn something, but decides not to share it, or not to expand it, or not to do outreach with it. So with his knowledge, he explores every avenue to gratify all the desires that he has for this world. Monetizing things, which is not wrong, but to solely monetize the deen is something which is woeful in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In spite of all this, he still secretly believes that he has a high place with Allah. Whatever that he's doing is wrong, but he thinks he is right. And because he's doing this for the sake of Allah, on the outfront, on the outward, he thinks that he has a high maqam. But truly, this is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, woeing him with. And this is a very important reminder. Because sometimes, like I said, in every single thing that we do in the outward, we always think that, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, I'm volunteering for the sake of Allah, I come to the masjid to help the masjid, the imam, or the ustaz for the sake of Allah. What is truly the thing that is going through inside your heart? Now this, when Imam Al-Ghazali says this, it is not for any one of us to judge any one of us. No one knows the matters of the heart. But this, that has been mentioned by Imam Al-Ghazali, is meant to be a reflection to each and every single one of us, me included, to revisit again the intentions of our journey in life. Why we do things, what are we made for, why do we do this, and why do we do that? At the end of the day, the beginning of guidance is not meant to confuse us, but rather to guide us. The beginning of guidance, a corpus by Imam Al-Ghazali over here, is one that puts us on the ground and gives us the rope of hablum min Allah wa hablum min nas. And that is the rope to link us towards Allah and with the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla. And I end today's session inshallah with this. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us beneficial knowledge, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide us towards doing goodness in life. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help to rectify all our mistakes inshallah, and give us the understanding to be a better Muslim in life and to be a follower of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved and respected master inshallah. May we benefit from the life of Imam Al-Ghazali and his works, and may we benefit from the knowledge of Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahumullah ta'ala qadasallahu bi. May we be a person whose heart is soft and one that is inclined towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla. May we be a servant of Allah that is saved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the deception of shaitan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us, as how his beloved Prophet have said, that those whomsoever struggles to understand and learn about his deen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for us to enter his Jannah. May Allah Subhanahu wa Taala grant us Jannah insyaAllah. May Allah Subhanahu wa Taala grant us Jannah insyaAllah. May Allah Subhanahu wa Taala grant us Jannah insyaAllah. اقضي هوائجنا يا الله، اقضي هوائجنا يا رحمن، اقضي هوائجنا يا رحيم. اللهم إنك تعلم أن هذه القلوب قد اجتمعت على محبتك وعلى مغفرتك. اقضي هوائجنا يا الله، اقضي هوائجنا يا رحمن، اقضي هوائجنا يا رحيم. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما، وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما، ولا تجعل فينا ولا معنا شقيا ولا مترودا ولا محروما، إنك أنت السميع الدعاء، إنك أنت السميع الدعاء، إنك أنت السميع الدعاء يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار، وادخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والحمد لله رب العالمين. تقبل الله منا ومنكم تقبل يا كريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى.